your interview will very often be based on what your resume is. So your resume needs to have a chronology, structure in a way that you club the right things together in a way that it's not confusing to the other person. And regardless of the field, I understand I'm from the media space, but regardless of the field, I think it's very important for everybody to have a good looking resume. I mean, nobody wants to look at a black and white resume. Even if it's okay if it's a black and white resume, but at the same time, you need to put it well. You need to put it well that I want to read your resume. I want to see, oh, I want to check that resume. So you need to have some kind of power in the kind of aesthetics also that you use.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Skilled Sapiens Podcast. I'm your host, Reet Meghawat. At Skilled Sapiens, we bring you insights and strategies from successful professionals to help you navigate your career journey. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Nikita Matthew. Nikita has recently completed her MBA from SIMC Pune and she is currently working as a brand manager at Vann Harvest Private Limited. So, Nikita, welcome to the show and congratulations on getting placed at Van Harvest.
Hello, Ree. Thank you for the warm welcome. It's lovely to be here.
So, Nikita, let's start by diving into your background. Can you share some highlights of your career path and what led you in the first place to pursue career in marketing?
Okay, so for me, marketing was like an eventual goal. Like when I started off, especially after my 12th, I started thinking of being in the media space. I did not know where exactly I wanted to be in the media space. So I did my graduation in um, mass media, that's BMM in with the University of Mumbai. So I knew I wanted to be in the media space, but I was not very sure what exactly I wanted to do. So during my graduation, I decided I'll explore every possible realm in the media space. I did a lot of research. I worked with agencies, like in terms of an internship. I've done PR, I've done production. So I did try and explore everything. I know I didn't want to directly go towards journalism, so advertising was my calling. So I took advertising. I started working in that space. I graduated in the year 2020, and I remember being asked by one of my professors if I'd be wanting to join one of his agencies. And I mean, it was not something that I had planned necessarily, but that is where my journey started in like the media space. I started working on freelance basis. I worked with multiple clients. Went on to then eventually I started working with some agencies that was like Go Loop and then Shebang. So I worked with those agencies. I wanted to do an MBA. I wanted to do it with Symbiosis, SIMC, particularly because of the course that they offered that was in the media and communication space, because of a full-time MBA that they offered, right? Not many colleges have that course in the first place. So I had my college preference in place. While I was not very sure about which year I wanted to do, I just attempted the SNAP exam. And as soon as the first merit list came out, I was like, I can't do this entire process again. So I decided to just take it ahead and like just go in. So that's how my MBA college happened. And during the MBA college again, I was a part of the placement team. So I had some great exposure with that as well. And as a part of the campus placement, I got an opportunity to work with Vann Harvest, like you rightly mentioned. So my journey has been a proper culmination of multiple experiences that I've had. So it's a lot of learning, a lot of growing that has happened on the way.
Yeah, so that is visible from your profile also. I can see that there are a couple of internship you have done and
That's
also
right.
you have you have had a quite diverse experience from freelance work to that full-time job. So how did you
Right.
structure your resume to highlight those your potential to the recruiters and any tips for the students on creating impactful resume?
So resumes, especially because I was in the media space, I knew that my resume needs to look attractive. So Canva is like it's a tool that's out there, right? So a lot of people I have noticed that still don't use Canva very in the most optimal way. Even if there are certain templates, I think you need to identify templates that resonate with what your profile is and not necessarily with what just looks good. Because you need to stand out. You don't need to be like the rest of the crowd, right? So I remember I made my first resume on a Word doc. I mean, if any of you have noticed, Word document will also give you multiple templates for making a resume. Use a basic one, that's all right, but always ensure to structure all of the things well. Like say you mentioned that I have um freelance, I have internship, I have work experience. So there are multiple different segments. So I ensured that all of those were clubbed together, all of my experiences were put together. Because when I'm in the interview, when I'm talking about it, I don't want it to be very cluttered or very like something that's all over the place. I would want a structured answer in everything that I'm doing, right? So that will come only if I have my resume structured. Your interview will very often be based on what your resume is. So your resume needs to have a chronology, structure in a way that you club the right things together in a way that it's not confusing to the other person. And regardless of the field, I understand I'm from the media space, but regardless of the field, I think it's very important for everybody to have a good looking resume. I mean, nobody wants to look at a black and white resume. Even if it's okay if it's a black and white resume, but at the same time, you need to put it well. You need to put it well that I want to read your resume. I want to see, oh, I want to check that resume. So you need to have some kind of power in the kind of aesthetics also that you use.
Yeah, so structuring resume is really important if you want to stand out, and it gives an impression that you know what you're talking about to the recruiters. It's not like you have put everything into the resume and you
Correct.
are just all it's a mess all
Correct.
over. So
Right. You don't necessarily need to put everything in your resume because, say, I'm applying for a role that's in an advertising agency, and they might want to know if I have an advertising background or if, what kind of brands I have worked with. I just need to mention those. I don't need to mention every little thing about what I've done in my life. You can talk about all of that in your interview or how you have grown. But if you have too many things, you don't need to necessarily add it in your resume. Just try to keep it like a one-page resume that has all the details without just ranting about everything on your one page.
and that's really helpful. And apart from the resume thing, that interview is the most crucial part for getting placed anywhere. And it can be a little nerve-wracking, especially for students who are introvert and who are a uh, little shy about, they don't
Right,
lack in some way in communication and soft skills. So what
right.
strategies do you use, and were there any specific questions and scenarios that you encountered during your interviews, if you would like to share with our audience?
Sure. About my personal interviews, I remember how interviews for me particularly have been on a personal front about what I have done and why I want to do particular things in particular. So a lot of things have, a lot of the questions have come from the work that I've done in the past, which is natural, but it might not necessarily be the same for everyone. We were talking about how a resume is going to act like like thought starter for your entire interview, right? It's going to act like the base of your interview. Uh, if I am appearing for some interview, somewhere or the other, I know what questions are going to be asked. I know there's going to be a elevator pitch that I need to give, talking about what my background is, where I come from, why do I want to apply for this, and why am I in this industry in the first place. So these are basic questions that you definitely need to know. Why do you want to be in this industry, in this particular space? And one thing that I've realized that a lot of people don't look at or do is study about the company. If I'm like wanting to be a part of a particular company or a particular college, it's very important that I am I've read through the entire profile of what the company does, what the college does, what the background is, who their prospective clients are, what the industry is. And you need to find out a way or at least help the recruiters understand that you are going to be a good fit because you understand that business. And you genuinely need to do that, because if you don't have an understanding of what they do, they're not going to be sure of taking you in because they don't know what kind of value you will add. Some basic research about what their background is will always help. And interviews, in my opinion, are always conversational. The interviewer is also only just trying to understand who you are, how you do things, if you will be a good fit for the company. A lot of people also do like a cultural fitment round
Yeah,
to
exactly.
understand if, yeah, so they just want to understand if your personality sits well with the kind of people that they have in their organization, which is very fair. And you mentioned about people who are possibly introvert. I understand, and it's absolutely fine to be that, right? But it's also important to have your knowledge in place. If you have that, even if you're an introvert, it's all right, because there are going to be questions you just need to answer. And once you have the answers, you're not going to be stressed about it. It's always important that the interviewee drives the interview. Because
Yeah,
if I am answering something, the follow up question is always going to be from the answer that I've given. So there's no point of bluffing or like giving into something that you don't necessarily know. Don't go to places you don't know about. Just stick to what you know, what you want to talk about, and carry that discussion forward. The interviewer will also pick things about what you speak more passionately, because they are also trying to understand who you are, what you are, and why you are. So once they have that, I think it sits very well with them. And just be true to yourself, because at the end of the day, they are also trying to hire people in their team, and not just, some kind of person who just comes and like works in a very robotic manner to just finish the work. It's also about being in a space together collectively and making meaning out of it.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
like speaking of what you said about the cultural fit, so what happens? I have realized it with many of my friends also that we don't pay attention to the hobbies, and they try to know us if we will fit in their culture. And these
Right.
aspects of our hobbies and extracurriculars, we ignore them, kind of ignore them, and don't give them that much importance as that to our academic qualification. So you
That's
think
right.
that that really happens, and yeah, if you
It
don't see
really
them,
helps. So, right, it definitely helps. I know in school I've had like a very strong sports profile, because I have been an athlete. I used to play multiple sports. So a lot of my initial questions during my initial, like when I just started off, a lot of my questions used to be around what sport do you play? How did you start playing? And even when I started to work, the first brand that I worked on was a sports brand. I started working with Mumbai City FC, the football ISL team. I got to work with a lot of sports brands merely because I had a background with sports. So interviewers also try to link you up or align you with things that make sense to you, who you are. So I think that also sits very well. And soft skills are also developed based on what your interests, hobbies are.
yeah. So, and also like you have all these internship experience with you, like you have worked at Medicine World and also Two Cents. But what I want to ask is that every guest mentions that networking is also important for an MBA student. So the question that I want to ask is, we know that networking is important, but does networking means only sending the connection request to people on the LinkedIn, or how can our audience and the students, aspiring students, can create meaningful relationship with the people, with the recruiters, and any advice to for students for expanding their professional network? Like, who are the right kind of people they should send their connection request to? Because I have noticed many people sending connection requests to the CEOs and the startup founders of the company itself. So is that the right way to go to? They should look for particular people and search for them and send the request and really strategize the networking process.
So particularly for LinkedIn lately, because I mentioned that I was a part of the placement team, was one of my favorite social media platforms. I used to be on LinkedIn all the time. I used to particularly connect with like everybody on LinkedIn. But more than the founders of the organization, I used to connect with a lot of recruiting managers, the HRs. But at the same time, I don't see any like I don't see any insight into why one should or shouldn't connect with somebody on LinkedIn, right? If you're from the same fraternity, it's absolutely all right to connect with that person because eventually you're going to be in the same industry. I might not have started work, I might still be a student, but eventually, if I aspire to be in the same industry, it's absolutely all right for you to connect. And there's no harm, right? If you are somebody who wants to share something on LinkedIn, if you've seen some advertisement that you liked and you want to talk about it, please do. It's absolutely all right. It's a social media platform. But I think the tonality needs to change. It needs to be you need to be careful about about the content that you use about the content that you're putting out on LinkedIn as a platform. You need to be a lot more careful about that because I might not necessarily know the other person on LinkedIn, but based on the kind of information that you have been putting out, I judge you. So it's literally that platform that you're literally giving it all in for people to look at who you are in the professional world. But in my opinion, networking doesn't necessarily happen on LinkedIn. If you're talking to somebody, great. If you have some purpose to talk to people, great. I think a lot of people are very responsive on LinkedIn. Even founders will respond to you if you want to like ask them something or something, like if you want to call them over. They're very responsive. It's a platform that helps people connect, and I think it's a great platform. It's important that we also start using it in the most right manner. So if that's happening, great. But for a regular networking platform, I think one needs to start from college. Network with your classmates. They're going to be your eventual colleagues. You're going to, even if you're not in the same company, one might be in a brand, say, okay, I don't want to take names, but if one person is in a particular brand, one person is working with some advertising agency, you might have to connect tomorrow to work together in one bigger agenda. So networking starts from colleges in terms of how you talk to each other, because at the end of the day, an MBA college also is a networking platform. Um, you network with your professors. A lot of visiting faculty that is coming in at MBA colleges or even undergrad colleges. Speaking with your professors is one of the best way to network and to understand what the industry is. Even if you don't know what to ask, it's okay. Just go say hello. I want to understand what the industry is. What do you do? How do you do? What do you think is the future scope? These are basic questions that you can just go and talk to them about, and you will understand what the industry really is. You will get a lot more insights. You'll also get to speak to that person. That person will also eventually, like if you network well, they'll also help you connect with more people. So networking needs to start in college. Networking happens in person, in my opinion. A lot of people do it online on LinkedIn, that's great. But that is very short lived unless you have like a agenda, or like say if you are from the corporate relations team and you want them over to come for some event, you're maintaining that relation, you're networking, you're inviting them to the college, that's great. That's one kind of networking. But if you don't have a reason to do or have these conversations, then they might not last for very long, because then the other person also might think of it as a little annoying, so you don't want to get on that front.
Yeah, so first it's important to connect with your people who are sitting next to you, with your peers and your professors, and then go to the LinkedIn.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so on that note, I want to ask that, not every placement process leads to success. Like we have seen, what I have seen is that there are many companies that come to the college, and you see that initially your CV is getting rejected and not being shortlisted from 10 to 15 companies. And even if you clear the GD and you reach the interview, then it is it's quite disheartening to not get selected for the final placement. So, did you face any challenge in that way, or you were placed in the company that you first set in the interview? And how did you
No.
stay resilient and motivated despite that setback, if you faced?
Right. So particularly for like college placements, college placements are super competitive because a lot of, like especially MBA colleges, all your resumes are standardized. All your resumes look the same. It'll always be about the kind of difference of words that you've used. It'll always be about the kind of it will always also be about your portfolio that you've added. I made a portfolio in my first year MBA college, and I knew that was it. Like it is what I needed to stand out. A recruiter may not look at it, but I have a portfolio. Even in the interview, I'll just go and show my portfolio. It's a great thing because at the end of the day, the recruiter also wants to understand if you're really interested. If they see that you're passionate about their company, the roles that they have offered, they'll also be interested to like take you in if you show that passion. So that becomes important, right? uh, and it's okay to like not get the first company or even in the first 15 companies. It's absolutely okay because college placements, like we used to always say, it's not about which company, it's about the right fitment. Everybody, there'll always be something for everyone, but at the same time it's important for you to identify that. That does not mean that you keep sitting till the very end and be like, oh, mere liquid, I didn't get something for myself. But it's important that you keep trying and be okay with this entire space of rejection. It's not just you being rejected from that company. It's also because maybe you wouldn't like that company either. Maybe it was not a workspace meant for you, which is all right, right? I've also faced multiple rejections. That's been there, but at the same time, I've been a little picky and choosy with the kind of roles that I've wanted because I've been in the media space. I understood what the industry looks like. I knew where I wanted to head. I wanted a branding strategy role. Marketing was my eventual goal. It just so happened that I got my eventual goal in my MBA college, and I'm super grateful for that. But and see, that's how it works, right? Like I did not get in the first few companies that came to campus that offered like great strategy roles, but I got something that was way above and beyond what I wanted. It is something that I wouldn't have thought of in the first place. So I think that worked out very well for me. And it's okay for you to like not crack things in the first go because success is not about what you have now, it is about what you'll have eventually.
I hope that has motivated our students a little bit if they are watching our podcast. And
We
you
hope.
know, so you mentioned about the portfolio that you have made the portfolio, even if the recruiter won't ask for it, you just took it with you in your interview. So can you share some of the projects that were there in your portfolio or that you did during your internship as well?
Right. So in my portfolio, okay. So during my undergrad, I also worked on certain research projects, and I've literally taken those. I made a basic link tree portfolio. You can upload things there directly. It'll act as a stacked option. Whoever wants to view can directly click on whatever they want to view. So I put down all my research papers. There were a couple of them. I put down some of the brands that I worked with, certain projects that I'd worked on during my internship phase, during my work period before my MBA. That was it. I also started putting up, like MBA colleges, you'll do a lot of assignments. I did a lot of assignments in my undergrad as well. So as many projects as you do, especially when you work on like live cases. A lot of your visiting faculty members or like even faculty, they'll give you live cases or like brands that are facing real time circumstances or issues. You'll be working on this. So once you put down a solution for it or once you strategize something around and about it, if you can put it well in your portfolio, works best because people would also want to see how you think real time. So in your portfolio, if you can mention all of those things, your basic assignments, just put them, just upload them. It's absolutely all right. It's just going to give them an understanding of how you think and how you would work eventually.
So basically, keeping the record of all the projects and live cases that you have done in the class itself really helps in building your portfolio.
Right. But that does not mean that you necessarily need to clutter everything. Be very
Yeah.
careful again about what you want to show based on the role that you're applying for, based on the company. Say it's an automobile company. If you've worked on certain automobile brands, just put it up there. You can remove the others. It's absolutely all right. Be very careful about what you want to show versus what you think the recruiter might want to see.
That's really insightful. And also, were there any challenges that you faced during your internship or even throughout your MBA journey? And if there were, then how did you navigate those? Because I can see that you were pretty good, like you were the star performer since you were the head of the place com.
No. So there's always going to be some kind of difficulties everywhere, right? For me, during my MBA, it was always about juggling the multiple things that you're a part of. It's not MBA is not just about classes. It's also about the committees that you were a part of. I was a part of the placement committee, but uh, for me, it was a lot of juggling between tutors, organizations coming to campus versus classes. Uh, so even assignments, like we used to get assignments in the evening, and then the next day morning we were supposed to present it. So there's been a lot of juggling with the kind of things we had on our plate. You will get multiple overnight assignments. You're working all night. You're submitting it the next day. Next day, there's a company coming to campus. So there's always been multiple things on your plate. So that juggling has to happen. But I think for me particularly, I had a routine. I was pretty, I won't say strict, but it just so happened that I very easily followed it, and it worked very well for me. I used to have everything in place in terms of, I used to not compromise on my sleep. I was like, overnight assignments, great. But at the same time, next day I'll make up for it. I will sleep. So it's important that you balance your time. You know what's on your plate, and you make the most of the time that you have in your hand. So in the afternoon, you're free, just finish your assignments. You don't necessarily need to wait for the last minute to finish it. It's a habit that a lot of your team members might want to finish it at the last moment because they might not have the same things on their plate. But it's also team management about how you get everyone together to do that, or just allocate work in a manner that everybody finishes their task. So all of that time management and team management skills come in from MBA.
Yeah, team
About
management.
internship, oh, absolutely. And challenges with regard to internship. Every organization functions very differently when it comes to internships, right? Some of them will have your internships very well planned. Some of them will not know what to do with an intern. So, but it's very common for people to like, especially like the places that I have interned, people didn't know what kind of work they wanted me to do, and I've always been somebody who'd be like, oh, I realize that this is something that they don't have. So I'll start working on it. I'll show them if we could possibly do that. So it's also your responsibility that you go and talk to them, ask for work, understand. If you don't want to ask for work, it's okay. Just understand what is the work that's happening right now. What are they working on? Ask them if they need help with anything that they're working on. So you'll eventually start getting a little bit of work, and you'll start taking load off their plate. Once you start taking load off their plate, you will start adding value to that team. So then they'll start giving you work. They'll also look at you as somebody, they'll start looking at you as an equal. They'll start looking at you as somebody who can do things, get things done. So you want to be in a position to do that. So it's always going to be a lot of learning, asking, requesting, helping, unlearning. It's a complete journey. It's something that everyone experiences very differently, but it's always about how you take it up with your immediate manager.
So yeah, that's really true. That yesterday only I had a podcast and the guest mentioned the same thing that in your internship, if you want to stand out, it's really important to ask out and ask for the work. If you ask for it, then they will give you the work, the kind of work
Correct.
that you want, or even whatever work they give you, at least you will get stand out among your peers.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's
So
basic, right? I mean, you will also want to not just sit there idle, and the person, your manager, might not necessarily think of giving you work because you may not be able to do. It's not that they don't want you to do it. It's also their reservations that they have in their head. So it's important for both the parties to talk. And it works best when the intern goes up and, tries communicating all of this.
And you also mentioned about that you were very particular with the routine. Do you
Yeah.
mind sharing that were you a night owl or morning person? Since that
Uh,
I what we hear is MBA campus is most alive at 2 a.m. in the night. So were you a night person or a night
no,
owl or morning person?
I'd say I was a good mix of both. I used to, even if I sleep late, I know I'll get up early. If I had like a decent schedule, like especially like college, we had our entire campus was open till like 1:30, 2 o'clock midnight. So I'll be up by then, like I'll be up till then. I'll get up by like 7. And then, so we had like breakfast in the mess. So I would ensure that I don't skip my breakfast. Even if there are no classes, I will go to the academic block. So our academic block was a separate space and our hostels were in a separate space. So I used to ensure that I go have breakfast and go to the academic block. Even if there are no classes, I'll just go sit and work. I'll work on my committee work, or I'll just do my assignments, whatever it was. I always made it a habit to go there. If there are classes, from there I'll go to the classes. And if there are no classes, I'll simply sit and work. I'll come back by like 5, 6, whatever, depends on whatever the time is. If there are assignments, we work on that. Or there are like nice, our campus is like one dog friendly campus, like a lot of dogs. So we used to just walk around, pet them around. So that used to be like a nice space time. Nights will again be like an assignment night that we'll keep working on. So that stretches on. Yeah.
So ours is a cat-friendly space. So we have cats around. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's really important to take care of your health. And the MBA life is very hectic. It is understood,
Right.
but it's important to have your meals and take care of your health so that you can perform with full energy. You also need your health for excelling. So Nikita, do you have any final piece of advice for the students who are currently in the final year and who are seeking the final placement, and also for the aspiring students who are planning to pursue MBA in marketing?
Right. So people who are in their final years, make the most of the college life that you have, because once you're out of that space, it's very different, as those who have worked earlier would know. But at the same time, you also need to remember that there's no more college life that's coming to you, unless you plan to study further. So make the most of it. Even if you plan to study further, nothing more like it. Make the most of the time that you have with the folks that you are around with right now. And about being in this industry is a lot about adding value, adding meaning to the things around you. So if you're able to do that in the times that you are in right now, with the life that you have, or the people you're around, or the work that you're doing, please continue to do that, because the kind of value you add is what sets you apart. It's not about uh just the work, or just putting down Excel sheets, or like just putting the Word documents in, data numbers in things in place. It's not just about that. It's also about the meaning, the reason why you're doing it, right? It's also about adding value with the help of those numbers, or adding value with the help of those insights. So if you're able to do that, nothing more like it. But at the same time, uh, if you're trying to add value to things, don't forget to add value to your life, which is by living it. Make the most of the time that you have, and you will eventually grow. You will fail, and that's okay. But you will eventually grow. But that's only if you don't give up. So continue doing that. Uh, don't think of it very negatively in terms of any setbacks that you might have. It's absolutely all right. Everybody's had it, but it's always about how you grow from it. It's not about where you are right now. Like I mentioned earlier, it's always about where you intend to go, or who you intend to be 10 years later. The favorite interviewer question: where do you see yourself in 10
In
years?
the next five
See
years.
yourself happy. Yeah.
All right, Nikita, thank you so much for taking out your time and joining us for our podcast. And also to our audience, if you have made this far, we would love to have you back for another enriching conversation. Please subscribe and like our channel. Until next time, thank you.